Hey, how's it going? You might have seen the last video, just a really quick video it was, and this is just going to be an expansion on it. And this is going to be what seems to be possibly leading us into a world war, if it doesn't become, subdued or contained or understood, or a number of other words. Now, something to start with, to start this whole video with, I wanted to go into the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, the Belt and Road Initiative is something that originated by China, and it was a global plan, a global economic plan of expansion, and to expand trade routes across the world, and to, in part, unite a lot of countries together. And that sounds absolutely beautiful and amazing. And I think every country has the right to expand and to bring their economic expansion to a greater level and hopefully help increase the value of life to all their citizens. You know, it's really important to separate the people from the government, and that's in all cases, even when it comes to America. So the Belt and Road Initiative is something that's an expansion on what used to be called the Silk Road from back in the day. And this goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. You could even argue thousands of years. And it's something that was a trade route that connected China and all these other countries, even Europe and Africa and Egypt and all these countries together. It's something that has kind of, to some degree, died off as time went on and countries have expanded, collapsed, and moved on. And it all sounds really great, and I think it's a really important thing to understand what's happening here. And now, this Belt and Road Initiative started in 2013, and it's been going on and on. Global expansions, and as we go through this, I'm going to leave all the links below so you can all go through it. Every single one of the links that I'm going to go through, so you can go through it yourself. However, in recent years, there seems to be some ulterior motives behind this expansion. One of the ulterior motives seems to be, in order to build all these ports that China is doing, they want to hear. I want to explain one thing too. Is the Belt and Road? What the Belt and Road stands for is, the Belt is an expansion on land that connects all these countries together using a series of railways and economic plans and loans for these countries, these lesser off countries, and some countries who can even afford to possibly pay it off later. But these loans are lent out by China, and what it is, that's an initiative in order for these countries to accept this economic plan. And the road, ironically, is actually an expansion on the sea, and hence the Belt and Road Initiative. And the road is designed to do the same thing but over the sea, and their plan is to not have trade routes like trains and stuff like that, obviously, but to have ports built around the world. And they hand out these loans to help these countries pay for these, because they are all promised that they're going to get, economic prosperity from this, because when this economic Belt and Road Initiative finishes, there'll be a connection between all these ports, these roads, and these belts in order to push economic prosperity and really be able to connect the world in ways it's never been, connected before, which is going to increase China's power, obviously, and their economic growth, as well as all the countries involved. Now, it seems like it's multifaceted, and the further you go into it, and the further you deep dive into it, you start noticing that all these loans and all these debts that are created are having a negative effect on a lot of these countries. And some of these countries are seeing this, and they're kind of slowly backing out of the Belt and Road Initiative. And this has been going on since 2013, and in recent years, since 2019, is when some red flags started going off. And not only has countries like India and Pakistan and some other countries kind of started to think twice about this because they started seeing how they became in debt. And once they become in debt to China, now China has economic control over these countries. So it's starting to appear that this is really just a territorial expansion of how China sees to control the world economically. And we've seen how their GDP has been gross domestic product. Their GDP has been growing significantly, and their worth has been growing significantly, and their economic power has been growing significantly. And one of the things China likes to do is keep all their plans under the radar until the time is right. However, cracks start to develop here and there, and countries are starting to see how devastating this can be. And especially after COVID-19 had come about, you really start to see that the economic losses that these countries are having much more devastating effects than they saw. And it's not like these countries are getting grants, which are rewards in money in order to expand, but they're having loans, which puts them in debt to China. And if they don't get paid off, well, China has the upper hand. Not only do they have the upper hand, but now they have these ports and these locations in all these different countries to help expand their military if they need to, as well as their country and their territory. Now, why is this all important? Especially with everything else that's going on. Now, here's a few videos that I'm going to leave links to that are pretty important. I want you guys to take a look into them. But part of their strategy is to maximize their power and replace America, as seen here. Now, China has this 100-year goal, and they're using this 100 terms on purpose because it's going to be the 100-year anniversary of the People's Republic of China. And China likes to use symbolism in almost everything they do. Numbers are used. Mysticism is even used to the point of religious takeover. And now they want religion to be replaced with atheism, and on that pedestal that they use atheism is a way to bring their dynasty forward, which is really their government and their statehood. Now, I'm going to leave this all so you can all read this, but they have economic plans to become the world's powerhouse by 2049. And they were going to use the Belt and Road Initiative to do so. As we go through here, what this is this kind of backs up what I'm saying right here, and this is the military and security developments involving People's Republic of China. And this is a study, and it doesn't really start until page 6. So if we go to page 6 here, you start seeing they have enormously grown their military powers, especially over the sea. And one of the reasons they do this is for domination in the southern China Sea. And they do that on purpose because they not only want to back up all these belt ports that they've built, and road ports, I should say, across all these other nations, especially across Asia. They want to protect it, and they want to be able to bring their trades across, but if need be, to be able to bring in their military power to defend what they already have. As you see, a lot of these countries are kind of seeing what's going on, and they want to opt out of this. However, they still have debt. And so what you see in stuff like Pakistan and India, some small ground invasions just to kind of show China's superiority and that they're not fooling around. And here you could see shipbuilding of the People's Republic of China, that's PRC, has the largest navy in the world now, with an overall battle force of approximately 350 ships and submarines. And we don't have an accurate number on their submarines because they're just pumping them out, and a lot of them are stationed underground and going out across the world, and they just don't stop pumping them out. And these are nuclear submarines. And these nuclear submarines have huge potential power, and we're going to go into that. China is proud, and they claim that they can reach any city, major city, especially any major city in the United States. So as you can see, that they've increased their land-based conventional ballistic cruise missiles. They have. You can all go over this. I mean, I could spend an hour or more going over this. This is over 200 pages. But I'm going to leave the links here so you can all read on this, and you can see, what I'm talking about can be backed up with facts, which is extremely important on this channel. That's what I'm trying to do. And the upcoming news station that we're creating, me and my team. And so basically, they're growing their military force more so than any other nation right now, even the United States. The United States has actually somewhat slowed down until recently, since the last couple years. When the Obama administration was in office, you saw kind of a decline, or a stagnant time, I guess you could say. And through this and their military powers, what they've also been doing around the world, and here's their submarines, which I just said I'd go over. China launched new nuclear submarines that can slip past America's first line of defense and hit American mainland. And why is America so important? Because they're the number one power force right now in the world. And most U.S. cities are out of range of submarine-launched ballistics. However, they're coming up with new submarines that can get close enough and launch, let's see, up to 6,200 miles. They can launch nuclear missiles right here, if you want to take a minute and read that. And not only that, but these are nuclear warheads, which have multiple nukes on them. Why is this dangerous? I think that's pretty obvious. So as we go on to the next one, I want to show you some strategic things that are important to understand here. And this is going to be through Google Earth. Take a look here. Let's see how fast or slow this goes. This is the southern Chinese Sea right here. And what this gives access to, as you can see right here, Taiwan, and this is China up here. They can take over this entire region. And this region right here is where there's a lot of trade routes that they have built, and a lot of ports that they've built all around this area. And a lot of these countries, like Malaysia and the Philippines don't like this at all. However, Malaysia and Singapore and Thailand are not ready for an invasion, and they can't really defend themselves that much over the sea. They don't really have navies that well. And China is going to have domination here. One of the things that's important for us to understand and to see, hopefully this is not getting too laggy here, and you can still hear me without a choppy voice because it's kind of slow. Here's Taiwan. Here's Japan. And all these islands are Japanese islands. However, China likes to dispute some of those. And right now, China is so close, and China has been prepping for land invasions. And we don't know where they're designed to tackle, but we can assume most likely Taiwan or anywhere else in this region over here. And we've noticed they've been practicing and having drills constantly lately and pumping out submarines. One of the reasons why the submarines are important, or why this area is extremely important to barricade right now, is because the submarines can't get low enough to escape that region right now. If they do, that can be devastating, because they do have technology now that can slip past a lot of the radar systems that we have and sonar systems. And that's one of their technologies that they've been working on with all these subs they've been pumping out. Why that's also important, because the Philippines, Taiwan, and those stretch of islands right there for Japan create a wall to help not only protect them from, or to deter them from leaving the Chinese Ocean sea, but they also, if they do escape, can have really bad consequences for even Australia. Let's see. I know I have something up here about Australia. Yeah, here we go. China threatens to retaliate after Australia cancels the Belt and Road Agreement. Now, one of the reasons why I went over the Belt and Road Initiative was to show you how much territory that they will cover. Not only does it go from Asia to Europe to South Asia and into Africa, but also to Australia was part of the plan. And this is before Australia really knew, because like I said before, China likes to keep a lot of their things secret until last minute. They have patience like no other country. And so now, a way to retaliate, China is saying that they can launch nukes, they can launch missiles, they can attack them from overseas. And this is one of the reasons why you saw the United States really step in. Sure, there was problems, with Taiwan, but America didn't really seem too concerned until concerns of attacking Australia came up, and how close of allies we are. Taiwan is their own sovereign nation, but China wants them back, and this is very important to know, because now there's an alliance between 4 major nations in the world. One of them is Australia, we have India, we have Japan, and the United States, and this is now called the Quad. It's been around since I think 2007. It kind of went under the radar for a little bit, and resurfaced now since the hostilities in the ocean arrived. Now, the Philippines is right there, and China understands that the Philippines are not a very strong Navy force. And that's another reason why America is going to that part of the ocean and want to back them up. Because if China starts taking over islands in the Philippines, then we're going to have massive problems, because now they can spread out into the Pacific Ocean. And not only that, can they swarm all the little islands around New Guinea and everything, but that'll cause a huge problem for Australia. And if Australia gets blocked off or attacked, that's going to make it even harder for us to retaliate. And if they start gaining all these islands in the Pacific, that can be extremely dangerous. Now, a lot of people can argue, and I want you guys to read this, a lot of people can argue that, oh, America has the most superpower, there's no way we can defeat them. But a lot of that is media propaganda. If you have a nation that's rising and through the use of other techniques have crippled the rest of the world, and we can say, through COVID, and I'm going to get into that in a second, it can have a crippling effect on the rest of the world, on the rest of the nations, and how we can defend ourselves, especially if we have our Navy spread out in the ocean, and now our defenses are lowered in the United States, especially with submarines that are nuclear that can sneak past our coast. Because once they get close to the coast and surround our entire country, who knows? Launching nukes is not that far off from a reality, especially if they're preoccupied somewhere else, as we know that China has the largest navy. If China's navy increases to the point where they thin ours out so much, even with the help of other countries, it can have disastrous effects. Because as we're seeing, not only does China have a growing military, but they're also getting help from countries like Iran. Iran is an enemy to the United States. They're not friendly, they're hostile, and they're considered an enemy, an adversary, and a military adversary, especially the way that Iran and China have been trading nuclear materials. China has used the Belt and Road Initiative to expand their uranium mining and plutonium and all these other elements that are necessary to create nuclear weapons. and what they've been doing for Iran, as Iran has been helping to expand in the sea and kind of create some sort of border there. In return, they're getting a lot of uranium and other minerals that are used in the production of nuclear weapons. And why is that important? Because Iran does not care if the destruction of the world happens. They will gladly destroy themselves if they know they can destroy everybody else. That's one of the highest dangers with that country, is the fact that they don't care if they die if they know it's going to affect everybody else. That's the same kind of technique that suicide bombers use, because they know people in Western countries and pretty much anywhere else, they're afraid of dying because the whole point to fight is to live, right? Iran, it's a little bit different because of religious ideology and their small amount of power that they do have. They're going to try to use it to the fullest, which goes into the Middle East fighting that we're seeing right now, even between Palestine and Israel. But that's going to be a whole nother separate set of videos. I'm mostly in this one I just really want to cover China and why that's important. And so keeping all that in mind, we see the territories here. Now, let's see. This is something that's been going on for a while. You see these islands? These are a lot of artificial islands that China has been creating. Now, why is this important? Because a lot of these other countries down here have created their own islands, but now China has created more artificial islands that are being converted into bases and command posts than any other country in history. Their collection of islands that they've created outnumber any other country in the world. No one even comes close right now. Even if you combine a lot of these countries, look how many islands and posts that they have now. These are all going to be used for military purposes. And as we see, or as we've been seeing, a lot of these islands have secretly being built under the guise of other reasons. Now, we noticed recently that a lot of these ships have actually been disguised as cargo ships, and they've been disguised as fishing vessels. But what they really contain are military personnel, and the same thing is true with Iran. And why that's dangerous is also obvious. It's just part of their expansion into the Southern Sea. Now, the strange part about all this, and the way all these things are ramping up, and how all these things came into play, and how after all these countries started dipping out of the Belt and Road Initiative, it almost seems like the next phase was a little too coincidental. And the more we kind of see what's going on, the scarier and realistic it becomes. Now, we've known misinformation with the coronavirus. As soon as that came out, we've known that they were hiding, they downplayed, and they denied a lot of the information that we're slowly starting to uncover now, from laboratories that have been working on coronavirus modifications for a long time now. This is not something that is just started. There's no surprise, in my opinion, why this originated from Wuhan, because a lot of the laboratories for disease and viral research and experimentation come from Wuhan. And having, in the past, a lot of viruses come from China and the markets was a perfect disguise or cover-up to what's actually been going on here. I'm going to leave all this in there so you can read through this too. But there's definitely been reports that were hidden. They didn't want to talk about what was going on. In my opinion, I think they were trying to see what the effects of this virus might have been, or it could have been a lab leak. But I am convinced, and I'll go over that in future videos, that this was created in a laboratory, and this is a bioweapon. And whether this got out a little too soon or whatever, that could be another topic, but it seems quite coincidental that just as their Belt and Road Initiative started showing cracks and falling apart, this virus came out. And now what I want to go over here is leaked Chinese documents reveal a sinister plan to unleash a coronavirus. And these are reports from 2015. So I think it's important to take note. And I'll go over some of this real quick. Let's see, we're at 24 minutes. All right. A document written by Chinese scientists and Chinese public health officials in 2015 discussed weaponization of SARS coronavirus. And I don't know if you guys have been noticing, I surely remember, but since like 2004 and on, there have been different SARS leaks and bird flus and swine flus all coming out of China. And you could argue, yeah, of course, that improper maintenance of a lot of these facilities, can lead to disease. However, you see well-contained diseases in the United States when there's an outbreak. They usually contain them really well when it comes from these farms or meatpacking plants or whatever it is. They're usually contained pretty well and never really become, an epidemic or pandemic. However, 5 years before the start of COVID-19, it describes SARS coronavirus as a new era of genetic weapons that can artificially be manipulated into emerging human disease viruses. And there's obvious reasons why this is important, because we've seen how far we've come in genetic manipulation and how far China has become one of the world's leading developments of genetic research and viral manipulation. China has done some of the most unethical things imaginable. They just recently, a few years ago, and the reports came out just recently, that they created human-monkey hybrids. They created in laboratories human-monkey hybrids. And supposedly they had to terminate them because they became very sick. They became, frightening to the point where they weren't sure where a lot of these laws internationally would end up, because now are these entities going to have human rights, animal rights? How does it work? And who exactly did they take this DNA from? And as we do more and more research, we're finding that one of the reasons that China is rounding up a lot of these minorities in their country is to just use them for experimentation. So I have no doubt that that's where a lot of the genetic material came from. And as you can see, all these things piling up is creating so much tension that it seems almost inevitable that a war is coming between China and Iran and a few other countries against the rest of the world. The Quad seems to be, in my opinion, a new ally union, and there's going to be more countries who are probably going to join. You could even call it, a division of NATO, and you're going to start seeing some other countries, or if not the countries already involved in China's axis, start to become a lot more dominant. And you're going to see a lot more tension because China doesn't want to back down. They have goals to reach by 2049, the 100-year anniversary, and the rest of the world is starting to become aware of China's games and starting to see what's really going on. Now I'm going to leave you at that, and you can kind of think about this and kind of go over these links, as I'm going to leave them all in the description below. If you find this interesting, and this is just a part one of leading to World War III, and this is just the first part in the China series. Now, I want you to like and share if you found this intriguing, and if you want to know more or have any questions or anything else to say or other information you'd like me to go over, just leave it in the comments below, and I'll leave it at that for now. And well, have a great night, and I'll see you soon. Take care.